Hola, buenos días. ¿Cómo estás? Bien espero. Yeah, I'm not a Spanish speaker, but I'm trying to learn. Started learning in my 40s. And you know, even if you have never taken a single Spanish class in life, you probably know what I just said. Even if you have no Spanish speakers in your family, you probably know that I said hello, good day, how are you, well, I hope. Yeah, and that's because we are living in a climate of globalization. Yeah, all around us, ideas, products, policies, they're circulating, including people. All around us, people, ideas, policies are circulating from all over the world. We're in a climate of globalization. And that's our subject for today. We're talking about globalization. It's in the reading for today, which is going to serve as the basis for your first assignment in the class. I'll be getting to that shortly. But when we get to globalization, you're a representative of some other part of the world every single day you put on clothes. In fact, I'd like you to stop this video right now and check the label of your shirt or your dress or your suit. Where's it from? It might have been the material might have been grown in Thailand, and then the textiles, the sleeves of your shirt might have been assembled in Mexico and then brought into the United States. Yeah, that's the world we're living in today, globalization. Unfortunately, globalization is not an old term, and I say not a new term, I should say, and I'm using the word unfortunately because the first way that globalization reared an ugly head, to put it mildly, was during the slave trade. Yeah, and the slave triangle representing globalization. The slave triangle being that triangle between Europe and Africa and the Caribbean, where ships would leave from England, Holland, Spain. They would go over to Africa, Ghana, for example, and they would unload slaves. They would purchase slaves and capture them in other unseemly, inhumane ways. Then they'd head to the Caribbean, where the slaves were offloaded, auctioned, human beings, I hate even using the word slave, human beings, and then the goods that were being harvested on the plantations there, the coffee, sugar, etc., they were then unloaded onto the ships and then moved back to Europe. And as unseemly as a trade that was, it was stimulating early globalization of commerce. And now here we are today in a completely different environment. Globalization has accelerated. And it's almost as if there's very little difference today between Pennsylvania and New York, and between Pennsylvania and New York and Europe in terms of our style of clothing. You can see baseball caps, for example. You can see sweatshirts wherever you go. So we're talking about globalization today in the context of media. And you're going to be posting today your first country media post. And along with the rest of the book, well, it's a book that I wrote that is out of date, that is now supplying some of the readings for our course, including today's readings. Along with the rest of the book, you're going to be applying today's chapter material to the country that you have selected. So I want you to be thinking about that early on in this video. Globalization will be a little bit more difficult to apply than the other chapter concepts because it's very abstract. And yet at the same time, that'll give you a lot of creativity in your post today. So there is a reading for globalization, and the reading is going to cover 4 reasons why globalization has taken place. And what is globalization specifically? It's the coming together of people, governments, values, corporations, policies, languages. You know, we get a language like Spanglish, combination of Spanish and English, because of globalization. So why is globalization happening, and what does it mean for media? Well, let's talk about why it's happening. There are 4 reasons for globalization happening. The first one being international travel. You know, looking at your introduction videos that you've posted for this class, I'm really amazed at the amount of travel that my students have today to other countries. If I would have asked that question before, what countries have you been to, say 5 years ago, there would be a lot less countries named. And the countries being named are what would be considered previously esoteric countries. You know, it used to be, oh, I've been to Ireland. My family took a trip to Ireland and I went. Do you remember it? No, I was too young. Well, today, my students are going to Ecuador. They're going to Puerto Rico. They're going to Eastern European countries, and some are going to African countries and Asian countries and South American countries. Well, I already mentioned Ecuador is a Central American country. So I'm just amazed. And the international travel is taking place because people can book their own flights. It's very easy today to get onto a website and find really cheap flight. I went to Amsterdam this summer for only $450. And I know that's a lot of money for a college student, but that's a really cheap flight in the middle of summer. I took Iceland Air and flew to Reykjavik, Iceland, and then on to Amsterdam, and then took a train to Germany to visit my wife where she was teaching a class. So it's really easy to travel today. It's really easy to book cheap airplane flights. And also more airports have opened up. You know, I fly to Mexico quite a bit, and just in the last few years, an airline by the name of Volaris, owned by the richest person in the world, Carlos Slim, it's opening up new routes into parts of Mexico that were not available to the U.S. So the world is being opened up by international travel. Is one reason the globalization has taken place. Another reason is because of communication technologies. You know, I'm holding a phone right here in my hand, I'm talking to you. It's amazing, right? And that phone that sits in our pocket every single day that we're trying to make sure is always charged, always available for notifications, that device has opened up the ability to access content from all over the world. It's just a couple thumb taps away. And the same goes for cable television and satellite television. The electronics in our lives have opened up the world. And yet there is a downside, and maybe even an argument to be made that technologies are not opening up the world. And I'm going to let that argument be presented in a link that I'm sending you in an email today. Nevertheless, it's the second reason that globalization has taken place, because technologies are opening up content from France, Argentina, from wherever. A third reason, going along with the second reason for globalization, is because of what I call global media conglomerates. Global media conglomerates. These are monstrous parent companies that own lots of sub-media properties, and often you're not even aware of the parent company because they want that brand to be kept in the background, and they want their subsidiary brands to have their own individual identities. A good example is the Disney Corporation. You may not even be aware that if you're watching ESPN, you're watching Disney. Yeah. If you're watching anything on ABC television, you're watching Disney, because Disney owns those properties. Of course, Disney also owns lots of other non-media properties, like their theme parks, and they own the copyright to all these fairy tales which were not written by Disney people. They were written by others, like Cinderella, and then the copyrights were purchased by Disney. It's just one example of a media conglomerate, a global media conglomerate, because they have theme parks in China and France, that is reaching into your lives every single day. The same goes for the News Corporation. I don't know if you know that company. It owns Fox. Yeah, Fox, very conservative network on television, most people would say. And yet it also owns the Sun newspaper in England, or Britain, I should say, the largest circulating newspaper over there, which is anything but conservative. So we got Fox. We have other corporations as well. We got Comcast, a Philadelphia-based cable company that bought NBC, which previously bought General Electric, making refrigerators and lots of appliances, which previously bought a water company in France named Vivendi, which is now all wrapped up into this huge company, Comcast. And then there's a company, Bertelsmann. You may not even know about that one. It's a huge German company. And that German company had a TV station that it owned in England called Channel 5. And on that Channel 5, they used to run a show called Pop Idol. That show, Pop Idol, was taken notice of by Fox or the News Corporation, and they bought that show, brought it into the U.S., and called it American Idol. So there's globalization for you right there in terms of a television show. It's not an original idea. Neither is Survivor, by the way, if you know that show, or Big Brother. Big Brother was born in Holland. Survivor was developed by Swedish television, and they called it Robinson Crusoe after the famous story of the sailor who was stranded on an island. And of course, it's made its way over here as its own American Survivor series. So we have globalization taking place through media conglomerates. And why is that? Because global media conglomerates, they're profit-making entities. And they're going to reach a natural ceiling for a show, for a TV show or a newspaper or for a radio program. They're going to reach a natural ceiling of audience members wherever the country is. Now, I know that I'm using television a lot, but one more example here. Let's say that you are the producers of The Big Bang Theory, which has been consistently the #1 running television show in America. there's only going to be so many people in the US that will watch that show before you've capped out your audience. For example, I'm a person that will not watch that show. I won't watch that show because I don't like the way the intellectuals are depicted on that show. I don't like the Sheldon character. He doesn't resonate with me as far as the people I know who are quote-unquote intelligent. So I'm never going to watch that show. So the global media conglomerates who produce shows like that, they're going to look overseas. They're going to try and find audience markets in other countries for the Big Bang Theory. That takes us now to our last factor. Our last factor is just plain audience curiosity. Audience curiosity, it's an interesting desire that we have because it has to be kindled. You know, just think about if you're a coffee drinker. Did you like coffee the first time you tasted it? Well, you might have thought to yourself, wow, that's really bitter, really sour. But slowly but surely, you start to get used to it, you start to crave that taste. Many of you can't function without coffee. That's how important it's become, but I doubt you liked it the first time. And that's the way audience curiosity goes for the rest of the world in globalization. It has to be kindled in us. You know, the first time you get thrown into Mexico and you see a bunch of police cars running around with their lights on, it's scary. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And then you realize, you know what? It's just different in Mexico. They have those lights on not because something's going on. They have the lights on the police cars so that people feel safe, so that people know that police are always around. And furthermore, if you need a police officer, you know where to go to get one because the blue lights just went past you. Pretty amazing, right? So audience curiosity takes a while. It takes a while to cultivate, and more people, I hear, are striving to go to foreign countries and get access to foreign media content because the curiosity is being built up. So that's the climate of globalization today. You'll get more detail in the readings, which you'll be asked to apply to your country media posts. All right, so that's it for that part of the lecture today. I do want to move to talking about Canada. Things are starting to wind up. We've got the hotel room situated, and I expect to be making an announcement on Friday about what the details of this trip are and how you can sign up and how much it's going to cost. So with that, I leave you today as I walk across the intersection at East Stroudsburg University and see all these people around me and wondering, what are they in touch with the rest of the world through their media use? That's a question that we'll be asking all semester long. Have a great day.